Minister, I'm part of the Save Our Forests, Save Our Lands Alliance, which you may remember campaigned and protested against the deal between Coillte and Gresham House, vulture funds, in terms of Ireland's afforestation programme. And we put into the public domain in January a leaked letter from the Director General of the Environment in the EU Commission, which roundly criticised the proposed forest programme from the government, basically on the grounds that the Sitka plantation model is damaging to our biodiversity. So I wonder, where now is the forest programme in the light of that critique from the EU, and has the government taken on board the criticisms made in that letter?
Minister.
Deputy, as you are aware that the new and ambitious €1.3 billion forestry programme 2023 to 2027 will replace the previous programme, which expired at the end of 2022. This new programme is subject to state aid approval under the guidelines from the EU Commission, and is also subject to an ongoing strategic environmental assessment and appropriate assessment process. The new programme will benefit farmers, it will benefit rural communities, and it will benefit the wider climate and environment for years to come. The Department has been engaging proactively and intensively with the Commission over the last number of months. The Commission is currently reviewing our formal state aid notification that was made last month, and that review on our proposed new forestry programme, and they will ultimately decide whether the aid is compatible with EU rules. As part of this deliberative process, the Commission Department responsible for policies on competition, DG Comp, is engaging in an inter-service consultation process with other departments, including with DG Envy, which is responsible for the Commission's policies on the environment. This process has not yet concluded, however I do expect a reply from the Commission shortly. In the final analysis, some changes may be required to the published programme, and all efforts will be towards receiving state aid approval while delivering on the enormous potential for forestry in Ireland. My department commissioned you had a question about cost-benefit analysis as well. My department commissioned a cost-benefit analysis on the forestry creation and roads element of the proposed new forestry programme. This analysis considered the costs and benefits of the proposals and took account of a variety of factors, not all of which could be monetised, including water quality, regulation, landscape and biodiversity, amongst others. The overall conclusions were positive and confirmed that spending on new planting and new forest roads under the new forestry programme represent value for money to the Exchequer.
Deputy Boyd Barrett.
Minister, the reason there was outrage, or part of the reason there was outrage at the Gresham House Coillte deal, was because it was going to further expand a failed forestry model of Sitka plantations that are bad for communities, bad for biodiversity, bad for water quality, bad at just about every level, and indeed make our forestry very, very vulnerable to disease, to being dependent on a monocultural economy. And interestingly, the EU Commission letter that we leaked, that the government tried to suppress, essentially corroborated that critique and said that the reliance on the Sitka plantation monocultural model was not acceptable to them because it was very damaging to biodiversity. All of that speaks to the need to radically reform our forestry model in this country, away from the Sitka plantation model, away from vulture funds, and I think speaks to the urgent need to reform the mandate of Coillte so it is actually diversifying forestry, and it is developing a forestry model that is strong on biodiversity, helping communities and helping farmers make a just transition, and indeed developing a diverse forestry model which is less vulnerable to disease, to the ups and downs of dependence on a single monocultural model.
Minister.
I'm sure the Deputy has looked at the new proposed forestry programme for Ireland for the next 5 years, and if you have, and you have compared it with previous programmes, you will see a step change in what that programme offers our farmers across the country. You will also be aware that we have a timber industry in Ireland. I mean, you might not value it, you might not value the jobs that it creates across the country, in rural areas. You might not place value on that, but I do. And what we have to do is strike a balance with our forestry programme. We have a massive challenge ahead in terms of climate action. You know that. We have a massive challenge ahead in terms of biodiversity and water quality. We all know that. Forestry is going to play a significant role in the future of Ireland, in terms of our land use, in terms of incomes across the country, whether it's to farmers, whether it's creating jobs. I have to create that balance. Life is not black and white. You might have a black and white view of life. I don't. I have to create the balance out there. I have to bring as many people with me as possible. We have to deliver a forestry programme that works for the environment, that works for communities, that works for farmers. We have learned lessons from the past. We know what doesn't work, but to absolutely say we can't have any Sitka spruce ever again in Ireland is, quite frankly, a naive approach.
Deputy Barrett.
It is the dominance of Sitka, with the overwhelming dominance. It's an accident waiting to happen from a biodiversity point of view. You think about the pine weevil, the bark beetle that's moving across Europe and so on, which has actually damaged the economic interests of farmers. And you look at ash dieback, how that sort of thing can happen very quickly. What we need to do is diversify the forest model, both in terms of biodiversity, but also in terms of the economic sustainability of it. Where is the research going into developing markets for alternative forest products from a more diversified forestry model? It's not happening. There's a complete dependence on a single model, which is an accident waiting to happen, and which has meant the EU has said your forestry programme simply won't cut it. Right? So we're not, and that is why there was such uproar from communities, from farmers, from environmentalists, from just about everybody over the Gresham House deal, because it would have expanded an already failed forestry model to the benefit of vulture funds. That needs to change.
Thank you, Deputy. Final words to the Minister.
Deputy, we are diversifying the model, and as I would encourage you to look at the new forestry programme, it is far more diverse than previous models. Forestry is a very long-term project, as you know. It takes decades for forests to grow and thrive. We are not only diversifying what the options are for farmers, we're diversifying the tree species in commercial plantations. We can't be all down with commercial plantations. We're not putting up with that sort of thing. That's just a nonsense. I know, but I mean, the point you're making is about you're being critical of the model. What we are doing as well is diversifying how we manage the trees. It's about the management also. We're seeing supports for continuous cover models where you have mixed age, mixed species, that farmers are engaging with that. That is a process. We're seeing Oireachtas transforming some of their monoculture Sitka spruces and other conifer stands to mixed species, to continuous cover. Progress is being made, albeit not as quickly as everyone would like. Maybe we can't just click our fingers and change one type of stand to another in a year or so. We have to, there's a process here. We're engaging with the process, we're engaging with landowners, and I think, if we give this time, we will see an absolute change in how we deliver forestry in Ireland.
Thank you, Minister.